Use the Force! Hi everyone, it's me, and today, Star Wars! Who do you side with? The Empire, the Rebels, or etc.?
It's a fun fact. At the 2007 American Psychiatric Association's annual meeting, a psychiatrist by the name of Eric Bouy argued that Anakin Skywalker meets 6 of the 9 diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorder.
Wait, seriously? They are talking about something so important about a fictional world?
One more than the 5 needed for an official diagnosis. Now, I bring this up for 2 reasons. First, to show that I'm not the only crazy person out there applying real-world diagnostics to fictional worlds.
In 2007.
But secondly, to emphasize a point I made in my previous Star Wars theories. The Jedi are low-key the bad guys of the prequel films. Studies of borderline personality disorder have found that 31 and 58% of cases are caused by environmental conditions, factors like emotional and physical abuse and neglect. For instance, a young child being whisked away from his only living parents at a young age and not being allowed to see them again while being told to repress all emotion, just like what happens to Anakin. Anakin, in the first movie, is a confident, self-reliant young man. Sure, he and his mother live in slavery, but they're getting by just fine. Fast forward to him after years of Jedi training, and suddenly he's impulsive, insecure, emotionally stunted, and unstable. All classic symptoms of borderline personality disorder. Just saying that it's not just me, Joe Schmo YouTuber, saying this sort of stuff. It's teams of real-world psychiatric experts presenting their findings to other professionals out there in the field.
Yeah, he's not like just saying a YouTuber with oh, go diamond play button. I have not even reached 1K for, subscribers yet.
And with all that being said, now it's time to talk about how the Empire wasn't all that bad.
Huh? The Empire is...
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory!
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory! Hello!
The show that likes to play devil's advocate, or should I say dark side's advocate.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Unnatural? Sign me up! I always thought that au naturel stuff was overrated hippy-dippy nonsense. Previously on Film Theory, we discussed the idea that maybe the Jedi aren't actually the impeccable paragons of virtue they're made out to be, uncovering that if you step back from the biased perspective of the movies and just take an objective look at the Order's actions, a lot of it ranges from neglectful to abusive to downright exploitative. At the very least, consider this. In Rise of Skywalker, we're given this whole subplot about Finn and Janna being raised and indoctrinated into the Stormtrooper ranks.
You were First Order?
Not by choice.
We were conscripted as kids. I was TZ-1719.
FN-2187.
You?
I never knew there were more.
This is seen as a bad action in the world of these movies, and yet the Jedi Order has been doing the exact same thing since the prequels. It is a foundational part of their recruitment.
He is to be trained then?
No, he will not be trained.
No.
He's too old.
We just never see it that way because the movies bias us against that point of view, which is why today I'd like to take it one step further. The Empire wasn't all that bad. The entire Galactic Republic was a failure. It was riddled with flaws.
Oh, case in point. Let's just stop this video for a moment first. You do recognize that this is about a fictional story about a fictional world in a fictional galaxy. Yeah, right?
Put it simply, the hard truth is this: the galaxy was better off under the rule of Palpatine. Now, I'm not talking about blowing up planets. Admittedly, that was a pretty huge evil thing, and we're gonna get to that. But really, I'm talking about the daily lives of ordinary citizens, the everyday moisture farmers out there minding their own business in their little corner of the universe. Sure, behind closed doors, Emperor Palpatine is secretly a Sith Lord who can shoot lightning bolts from his hands. Definitely seems evil, but no one knows that. Heck, that'd be like if the President of the United States was secretly a member of the Illuminati. You'd never know. I mean, seriously, maybe he can shoot lightning from his hands. The long and short of it is this: from an outward policy perspective, the Empire wasn't all that bad, and the Republic just fails in a lot of very basic duties. But we never get to see any of this because the movies are framed with the rebellion being the heroes. And with that said, let's begin. One thing that...
The Guardians, the galaxy's greatest heroes. Is something like the Guardians? The Galaxy's Guardians. Something like that.
Got me thinking about all this was rewatching the first season of The Mandalorian. There was one line in the finale of season 1 that really caught my attention, delivered by Werner Herzog's character, the Client.
The Empire improves every system it touches, judged by any metric. Safety, prosperity, trade, opportunity, peace. Compare Imperial rule to what is happening now. Look outside. Is the world more peaceful since the revolution? I see nothing but death and chaos.
Now, of course, we can't just automatically accept everything that he's saying at face value. After all, he's the bad guy, and from the way he says we when talking about the Empire, we can assume that he was affiliated with them, meaning he's not exactly the most unbiased person. But The Mandalorian shows us that the Client isn't the only one who seems to feel that the New Republic hasn't been doing their job of keeping the galactic peace. Look no further than this line from episode 3 between Mando and Greef.
All that are left are mercenaries and warlords, but if it bothers you, just go back to the core and report them to the New Republic.
That's a joke.
As a reminder, this is a conversation that's taking place several years after the New Republic won in Return of the Jedi, replacing the rule of the Empire as the legitimate galactic government. And in this one line, we see the idea that the New Republic would actually send a peacekeeping force to Navarro is actually so laughable that Mando considers it a joke. It's almost like that entire part of the galaxy is a neighborhood where it's not even worth calling the cops because the cops never come. The New Republic is failing in some of the most basic duties of governance here, leaving it up to Mando and his friends, the bounty hunters, to clean up the mess that the Republic is ignoring. It's not all that far off from what the Client just said. All he sees is death and chaos. What we're learning here is that overthrowing a government is a whole heck of a lot easier than building up new governments to effectively replace them. In fact, places like Mandalorian's Navarro being ignored by the Republic isn't just sloppy oversight, it appears to be the Galactic Republic's full-on policy. I mean, have you ever places like heck of a lot easier, it's not all that far off from what the Client just said. All he sees is death and chaos. What we're learning here is that overthrowing a government is a whole heck of a lot easier than building up new governments to effectively replace them. In fact, places like
Oh my gosh, I just muted myself. Oh my gosh, one more time. So anyways, let's rewind that again.
To clean up the mess that the Republic is ignoring. It's not all that far off from what the Client just said. All he sees is death and chaos. What we're learning here is
Okay, let's just listen to one more time, third time I guess.
That overthrowing a government is a whole heck of a lot easier than building up new governments to effectively replace them.
Yes. Overthrowing government is easier than building government that is better than the previous government.
In fact, places like Mandalorian's Navarro being ignored by the Republic isn't just sloppy oversight, it appears to be the Galactic Republic's full-on policy. I mean, have you ever stopped to consider what the Empire stood for, how it ruled, or what the New Republic was planning on doing differently? Most Star Wars media, especially the mainstream stuff, doesn't really get into these details because it's so concerned with space wizarding adventures. But in some of the extended universe stuff that's now considered legends, we learn from Grand Moff Tarkin, 5 years after the formation of the Empire, what the Empire's goal and structure was. In his speech outlining what's known as the Tarkin Doctrine, we get this: the factor that contributed most to the demise of the Republic was not, in fact, the war, but rampant self-interest, and in the end left the body politic feckless and corrupt. Consider the self-interest of the core worlds, unwavering in their exploitation of the outer systems for resources, the outer systems themselves undermined by their permissive disregard of smuggling and slavery, those ambitious members of the Senate who sought only status and opportunity. By partitioning the galaxy into regions, we, the Empire, actually achieve a unity previously absent. Where once our loyalties and allegiances were divided, they now serve one being, with one goal: a cohesive galaxy in which everyone prospers. For the first time in 1,000 generations, our sector governors will not be working solely to enrich Coruscant and the core worlds, but to advance the quality of life in the star systems that make up each sector, keeping the spaceways safe, maintaining open and accessible communications, assuring that tax revenues are properly levied and allocated to improving the infrastructure. That doesn't sound all that evil.
True, on paper it sounds good, on theory-wise, it sounds beneficial for most people, for the majority.
In fact, it sounds pretty sweet for the Outer System planets who, based on what Tarkin is saying, was getting abused by the core worlds under the Republic system. It sounds like it was kind of like in the Hunger Games. The outer districts were stuck giving all their best resources to the capital, and they themselves were left to suffer and starve. This is exactly what we're seeing in Navarro and The Mandalorian, and it's exactly what Tarkin is saying was happening before the Empire took over. And honestly, not only does the Empire's plan sound more fair to everyone involved, but it's also a more manageable system of governance. The galaxy is a huge, massive place, so the only way to properly keep track of everyone under your guidance is to divide it up into smaller sectors to be overseen in chunks, which, reading up on the Empire, is how the Moff and Grand Moff hierarchy was built. A permanent class of Moffs and regional governors were established to more efficiently govern individual sectors and regions within the Empire. That's how smaller places like Navarro don't get ignored under the Empire, and it works. As we learn about in the short story The Guns of Kelrodo Eye, the Empire manages to restore order and rule of law in 8 separate sectors, liberating 95 worlds. According to the Essential Guide for Warfare, this was a time of celebration as the rule of law gets returned to sectors that had long been taken over by piracy and crime. Citizens who were disillusioned by the corrupted Galactic Senate were now given a new hope, and their name wasn't Luke Skywalker, it was, well, whatever their Empire-appointed local governor was. I mean, what was it that Darth Vader said to Luke again?
Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy.
Nothing about power or control. He talks about ending the conflict and bringing order to the galaxy.
Sounds good for the majority, doesn't it?
Luke and the other rebels might have fancied the idea of creating a better, more utopian vision where the Imperial government didn't have to rely on military might to maintain the order, but as we see in the sequels, doesn't work out at all. The New Republic clearly struggles with the structure and order necessary to maintain such a huge body of governance. Not only did they fail in the short-term 5 years later future that we see in The Mandalorian, but they also fail on a much bigger scale. The sequel trilogy shows us what happened under the New Republic. Somehow, under their noses, the First Order, which I should remind you is different from the structure and manning of the Empire and actually a far more evil organization, they managed to amass enough power to create a Starkiller base that just completely obliterates the capital city of the New Republic. I'm sorry, did I say the capital city? I meant the capital planet, as well as 4 others. I mean, how badly do you have to fail at defense and national security in order for that one to happen? And that is just The Force Awakens. By the time we get to The Last Jedi, somehow the Republic, which again was supposed to be a galaxy-spanning union of planets, has utterly folded under the pressure and become a ragtag group of resistance members who are fleeing the First Order. Again, think about how crazy that is. Supposedly, one of the planets that the rebels liberated from the Empire rule in Episode 6 was Coruscant, which has a population of 1 trillion sentient creatures, at least half of which are human. And now, just a couple decades later, somehow the last vestiges of the Republic stand at several hundred people strong. That is over 99.9999999% of them killed off or abandoned the cause. I'm sorry, Leia, but you botched it. But don't worry, I hear—
Oh my god, you are a horrible leader. Your guidance is horrible. If that happens, like, wow, man, 1 trillion plus becomes 100. Not good. It's not good.
Your comments already. The Empire and the First Order may be different, but the Empire did also blow up Alderaan, and yeah, we can't forget about that.
Alderaan is peace, but we have no weapons.
But in all honesty, we just can't trust Princess Leia's claims in this moment. Just look at literally everything she has said up to this point in the movie. She starts by telling Vader that they're on a mission of peace.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
That is such a lie, Leia. We just saw your ship getting the plans, smiling with your digitally recreated face made by computer technology. Vader literally just experienced the events of Rogue One, watching the rebel ship fly away with the Death Star plans. Why would anyone from the Empire possibly believe you in this moment? But even still, even if there were weapons on Alderaan, it's not likely that everyone there was working for the rebellion, so there's definitely plenty of innocent lives lost in that attack. I'm not saying that the Empire were the good guys by any means, I'm just saying they were more effective at ruling a galaxy. However, if you hold that action against the Empire, shouldn't you also be holding it against the Republic? Because
case in point, both the Empire and the Republic, both sides are heavily flawed. Heavily flawed. They treat lives, sentient lives, as pieces in a chessboard. You shouldn't play like that. Every life is important. And case in point, both their governing systems have flaws in them, like heavy flaws in them.
let's get real here, they also do their fair share of murder, and also at a near-planetary scale. I'll let the movie Clerks explain this.
The first Death Star was manned by the Imperial Army, so when they blew it up, no problem, evil's punished. Second time around, it wasn't even done being built yet. I bet they brought independent contractors in on that thing. Plumbers, aluminum siders, roofers, all those innocent contractors brought in to do the job were killed. Casualties of a war they had nothing to do with.
The hard truth is this, there is blood on everyone's hands. And don't for a second think that the Republic wasn't above those sorts of actions either. In Return of the Jedi, Luke manipulates the indigenous Ewoks of Endor, convincing them that C-3PO was a golden god who would smite them if they failed to assist the rebels in their war efforts.
3PO, tell them if they don't do as you wish, you'll become angry and use your magic.
Let's see, pushing the indigenous people into your own military conflict, making them believe that God is commanding them to do so. I know Vader and his friends are called the Empire, but if someone here is guilty of cultural imperialism, it's not the guys who are wearing stormtrooper outfits. And I mean that quite literally too. The relationship that Luke has with the Ewoks stands in stark contrast to the way that the Empire treated them. Before the rebels showed up, the Empire stormtroopers mostly ignored the Ewoks. They weren't destroying huge portions of the forest to create their shield generator. The design almost seems like it was created to minimize the environmental impact. The Empire wasn't trying to crush the Ewoks or even rule over them. The Empire and the Ewoks were both pretty much live and let live, peacefully coexisting without any sort of conflict, which again gets to my main point about how life under the so-called oppressive Empire wasn't really all that bad if you are a regular galactic citizen or a regular Ewok. It wasn't until Luke showed up and brought the Ewoks into his war that they started dying. Look, let me reiterate this. I'm not saying the Empire was perfect. In fact, it's pretty far from perfect. The Emperor was basically a dictator. The Empire is autocratic. I can totally see why Luke would be attracted to the idea of joining a rebellion to fight it. But if you compare the Empire to what came before during the prequels and what came after in the sequel trilogy, it starts to look like the best of the three systems to live under. The movies give us a skewed perception of what the Empire is. From the rebels' perspective, of course the Empire is gonna seem evil, because if you're in the rebellion, the Empire is trying to kill all of your friends. However, the Empire is attacking the rebels only because the rebels are trying to destroy the Empire. For your average galactic citizen, life under the Empire was about as good as you could get. Or as Werner Herzog's character puts it in The Mandalorian,
the Empire improves every system it touches.
And even though our main guy Mando might take issue with Empire apologists like the Client, deep in his heart, he knows that life isn't actually better under the New Republic. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope that you find this video very interesting and just educational, quite knowledgeable, isn't it? It's quite educational and entertaining to watch. Entertainment! Yeah! Anyways, I'm sincerely grateful and thankful for all of your attention and watching this video together with me. And I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you do like this video, please remember to like, share and subscribe to my channel and comment down below if you have anything to share with us. Don't forget to follow my channel and sincerely appreciate all of your support and encouragement for my work. Thank you all so much, you're the best, and I hope to see you all in my next video. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory and cut! And I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye! Thank you all so much. Subscribe! Thank you.